Broadcasting live worldwide.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
So here's a question. What do you do when you are in a position where you meet somebody that, quite honestly, you've worked in the same building with for maybe 5 or 6 years, and you're put together by a mutual person, a person that you know for about the same amount of years? Well, I know what you're thinking. That's called friendship. But let me stop right there. I don't believe that things happen by accident. Today, on Have Faith, Let It Begin, it is my honor, it is my privilege to tell you, to introduce you to the next addition to an up-and-coming podcast that's going to shake up the industry. It's going to change the world. And you have the privilege to listen to a sneak preview as to what is about to come up. I'm talking about the CROC Podcast. And today, you're going to meet a great friend of mine, and his name is Dr. Tom Eanelli. Have Faith, Let It Begin starts right now.
On June 16, 2018, a show designed for you, the Daily Commuter, went live. A weekly show all about faith. A show with motivational topics, inspirational stories, and personal testimony set out to change the world.
Hello, my name is Amari, and today we are back on another episode of Have Faith and Let's Begin. Hi, my name is Isabella, and you're listening to Have Faith, Let It Begin.
Hi, I am Mia. You're listening to Have Faith, Let It Begin.
Welcome to Have Faith. Let It Begin. Here's your host, Angel Santana.
Can you say Have Faith, Let It Begin? Huh? Yeah. Yeah? Right. Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Have Faith, Let It Begin. This is Angel. We would like to formally welcome to my right here in studio, actually not studio, it's really your office, right? We would like to welcome the next addition to a podcast. Folks, write this down. The CROC Podcast. It will be launching officially on February 21st. I will have the description as to what time, because we are so fresh on it. I don't want to give you a time that may alter or may change, but I promise you, as your host here, I will keep you informed as to the actual time it'll launch. But for now, February 21st, 2021, the CROC Podcast, and I introduce you to the newest host of that, the founder and the creator, Dr. Tom Eanelli. Welcome to the Have Faith, Let It Begin.
Angel, it is an honor to be here, and before we even start, I want to tell everybody that when you're listening to a podcast, you want to achieve one of many things. You may want to learn something, you may want to be uplifted, you may want to be inspired. And it's kind of funny because when I started getting the idea of doing a podcast for cancer survivors, I was directed to you through a mutual friend. And I will tell you that at first when I listened to you, I was thinking, how could anyone do such a great job and be genuine? And you have achieved that, my friend. You are absolutely everything. You are the product that we listen to. You are there in flesh and blood. You are genuine. You are inspirational. You are spiritual. And the most important thing is you bring spirituality with a sense of humor. There are many times where people who have faith and try to share their faith do it in a very, very humorless way. You do not possess even one molecule of that. You are funny. You are genuine, you are real, you are legitimate, and it is an honor to learn from you. I call you my podcasting godfather. So this process has been just so tremendously rewarding for me, And I have to thank you for helping me bring it to this point.
And it's my pleasure. And just for everybody to know, this is actually a podcast that you've created. It's all something which we're going to get into. I have the luxury and the honor to be producing a little bit of it, and maybe one day take on a much bigger role. We'll talk about that and maybe make that a formal announcement later. But for now, let's let our Have Faith, Let It Begin family peek behind the curtain. What is the CROC Podcast?
Gotcha. So I have to tell you, any oncologist, and I've been doing this for many decades, and every single practitioner that I've been rubbing elbows with, whether it be another doctor, whether it be a nurse, whether it be any sort of cancer caregiver, I will say that we already know, even from our training, that just being great at what we do is not enough to serve our cancer survivors. And once I got that down, to know that I had to do the above and beyond, just like every single other person who takes care of cancer patients, then it really was a struggle for a while to figure out exactly what that above and beyond was. If you think about it, the worst 3 words you could ever hear is "you have cancer." And that diagnosis, that particular disease, and not to put a contest to which disease is worse, what is a worse, pneumonia versus heart disease versus stroke versus cancer. But I will say cancer does distinguish itself in the sense that not only is it a physical ailment, it also is a mind game. It also is a very mental process. And the unfortunate driving emotion with cancer is fear. So as you'll learn from my first podcast that we just recorded yesterday, a woman named Beth Denninger, through her inspiration from observing her interaction with other cancer survivors, that was the inspiration for 23 years ago beginning a not-for-profit cancer support group called CROC, Citizens Reunited to Overcome Cancer. And over those decades, we began with our first incarnation, which was basically having events, face-to-face dinners and educational sessions and all sorts of different things of empowerment and advocacy for the cancer survivor, which then grew into community service. For the last 8 years, we've been helping Miriam Lohr in the Celebrate Life Half Marathon, which celebrates cancer survivorship as well and gives grants to patients undergoing active treatment. We've been sort of helping evaluate the grant process and distributing that beautiful money that was earned from the hard work of Miriam and her crew. And then I finally figured it's time to get back to that hands-on cancer survivor one-on-one type of environment that we started with. But instead of it being one-on-one, face-to-face, I thought, why not utilize the technology available? Instead of being frightened by the technology, let's utilize that technology. In 1999, there was nothing for cancer survivors, at least in the Hudson Valley for sure, and besides the American Cancer Society and the Relay for Life. But other than that, there was really no advocacy. There was no real option for cancer survivors, and that's sort of the incarnation. That was basically the model we followed for that first decade. Now it's time to use this technology, get that bottled energy, that bottled nuclear force that is ingrained in our DNA from survivorship advocacy, and get it out to the populace, get it out to the constituents who have been affected by cancer. Those 3 words that I mentioned to you, you have cancer, well, I have news for you. Unfortunately, many people listening, including myself, may have to sit in that chair one day. Highly probable that we will. But for sure, I can tell you certainly, we all will have been affected by cancer in some respect, whether it be a family member, whether it be a colleague, a friend, a coworker. We're all going to be part of this process. And again, getting back to the beginning, it's not enough just to be great at what you do when you deal with cancer patients. You got to do more. So thanks to you, Angel, for giving me this opportunity, for teaching me how to start a podcast, for being my producer, my friend, my mentor, my guru. I can't thank you enough, and I hope that 15-minute talk answered your question.
No, it does, and you know what? And for many of us that have faith, let it begin, because they know how I talk too. I'll definitely get very detailed, and you are detailed, and that's what I like about the show. But let me take it a step further through the process of going behind the scenes. Let me be more specific to our audience here. You're not a regular doctor to me. I'm going to say that. I'm going to explain that when I say
I take that as a compliment,
yes.
Angel.
Yeah, you're not. Let's paint a picture for these guys. I always heard of Dr. Tommy Eanelli as the guy that never wore a white jacket. I heard that you were known for wearing different types of jersey. Explain that to me. Sure.
Well, I'll tell you, it actually started maybe about 15 or 20 years ago when I got a gift of a Columbia Ivy League jersey from my alma mater, and I wore it to work, and the patients were very, very interested, or I would say intrigued, by this crazy guy who is not wearing a tie, not wearing a shirt, not wearing fancy shoes, but wearing sneakers and wearing this jersey, and they started to comment on the jersey. And the next day, I brought in another jersey just to kind of test the waters out. And what I noticed was it was actually very therapeutic. And one of our episodes is going to be actually that. Not that, hey, Dr. Eanelli wears, sports jerseys to work, but what does that do? Well, I can tell you right now, it definitely reduces the formality of that association, because one of the goals of my 35-year career was to break down that barrier. So in I guess the industry of entertainment industry, we call it the fourth wall. You never break or breach that fourth wall where you're actually talking to the audience. Mm-hmm. And the question I ask is why? Cancer doctors, cancer nurses, cancer providers and caretakers can't be friends with their patients. Okay, why? Cancer providers can't be informal. They have to keep a distance between themselves and their patients. I ask why. And I believe that we will utilize that. I think in my practice especially, that we actually get superior outcomes from our treatments because of that accessibility, that breaking down of that barrier. And I think that a lot of people, in my colleagues in the hospital and in other fields or specialties, kind of probably see me as this kooky guy walking around, in this jersey. I am Waldo, except I'm Waldo not in a group of people wearing, striped shirts. Yeah. I'm Waldo basically, on a glacier, a white glacier with polar bears. Yeah. I mean, I stick out like a sore thumb. But, I have to give, my colleagues here in the hospital and, my bosses and the people who contract with me a great deal of thanks, for letting me do that experiment and kind of be myself and kind of trying to create that culture. So that's really kind of, it all comes together, right? So behind the scenes, who am I? What do I do? What do I want to try to provide, through this podcast? And we talked about this before. The system is terribly broken, especially for cancer patients. There's so many things I want to share. I can go on and on forever. Waiting times, communication between your providers, waiting to get test results, trying to find clinical trials, second opinions, discrimination, information, advocacy, friendship, love, support, just a kind word, and just to be able to be accessible to you guys. This is what we're going to do. We're going to break down that fourth wall. That's what the CROC Podcast is going to do. And this kooky guy who wears a jersey every day is going to be that guy who's going to lead you guys. But make no mistake, this is not about me. I'm the face. I am the, I guess, the leader, I guess, in the sense of the way of this podcast, but truly I am really just a representative. It is truly not that I deserve to be here, not that I deserve to take on this role, but it's really my honor to try to help in any way I can, and that's what CROC Podcast is going to be.
And that's awesome. And it's just from being the first person to have been a witness of the first episode that, quite honestly, folks, if you haven't wrote it down, I'm going to repeat it again. The CROC Podcast. It's going to be on the 21st of February. You don't want to miss it. There's an episode that really launches you, really, and puts you at the edge of your seat. And just listening to you sit down with the gentleman, Al Denninger, and listening to the actual episode, which we're not going to talk about because we got to give them a yearn to want to watch it and listen to it. It's called The Waiting Room. And all I can say is, as a person who has had to wait in your waiting room, not long, but long enough to know that there's, quote unquote, in my audience, this is a teaser, that there's juice in that waiting room. I'm not going to get into detail. You have to listen to the episode. When you hear the word, there's juice in that waiting room, you got to hear the episode. It will make sense. But let me close with this, because I want to have you back on. I really think we should keep us on. I want to get detailed about one thing. We have one thing very much in common that was very inspiring, even to me. It's the fact that when I spoke with you and we were just talking about, hey, we're going to do this podcast and all this, I said to you, my goal has always been, if I can just touch one person, I don't care how many people listen to me. It could be 5 people. But if I can just touch one person, I've done my job. And you said the same thing. Yep, that's all anybody who is in any sort of a position to be of assistance to another human who is struggling. All we can do is do one person at a time, touch one person. Listen, if this podcast, like your podcast, grew to tens of thousands of listeners and supporters and fans or people that you've assisted. But right now, I can't look at it that way. I have to look at just if there is someone out there suffering with cancer who does not have any, they don't know where to turn. They are at the edge of that abyss. And if that person listens and they're able to get some resource from us, that's all I could ask for. That's awesome. Well, listen, it's always an honor to have a guest on the show, but it's even more of an honor when you know the person, when you spend time with the person, when you know and sit across from the person, the microphone goes on, the record button is pushed, and you hear the genuine, the most humble, but yet inspiring mind of yours and what you're done. And to hear from somebody like a patient's husband, thank you. And not so much as with the words, thank you, but when he is talking about all that you brought to his wife, and you can feel that emotion, that, to me, symbolizes the CROC Podcast. It is all about a doctor who truly knows how to mentor, befriend, and do all that they can to change that person's life, because they have changed yours. And my goal in life is to make that, rather than a unique situation, make that the status quo. I want every cancer survivor, every cancer patient to have that same relationship, whether it be in Duluth, Minnesota, whether it be in Santa Barbara, California, Gainesville, Florida, Bangor, Maine. I don't care. You deserve to have that relationship with your caretakers, and that's what we're gonna make that happen. Excellent. Well, listen, let's close with this. Here at Have Faith, Let It Begin, I'm always reaching out to my prayer warriors. I always tell my prayer warriors, do everything you can. Let's pray. Let's think about it. I ask everybody to put prayer for this podcast. Let us really think good thoughts. Let us remember that things are done for a reason. We know that mistakes don't happen by accident. So February 21st, the CROC Podcast will join the podcast family. The CROC Podcast will change this industry. The CROC Podcast will take you to the places you've never, ever dreamed of. But one thing is for sure, it will give you the opportunity to know that your doctor can also be your best friend. For Have Faith, Let It Begin, thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Angel.
Have Faith, Let It Begin. That's going to be an awesome show. I'm telling you, that's going to be great. Good job, man.
Thanks,
Good job.
babe. That
Yeah,
was
man.
beautiful.